Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another episode of Fuji's Philly Flair. I want to wish everybody a good Holy Week. Happy Passover to everyone out there. Tonight, Philadelphia, you know what time it is. Tonight, we bring you a voice that just doesn't echo greatness. It comes from it. The son of a legend, carrying a legacy that helped define an entire city soundtrack, but make no mistake, he carved his own lane with power, passion, and presence. From the broadcast booth to the poker table to the center stage, where a voice that gives you chills. This man embodies Philly pride in every note and every word. So wherever you are listening, tune it up, lock it in, and get ready, because right now on Fuji's Philly Flair, we welcome the one and only Kane Callis. Just bear with me.
Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside, feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly Flair, oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist so rare. Fuji's Philly Flair, we're living the can.
Kane, welcome to Fuji's Philly Flair. Wanted to put that intro out for you. I ran into you last week at the game. I've had the honor to interview you on a couple other different shows, but your first time for Fuji Flair. How are you this evening?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Mike. Appreciate the intro.
Oh, anytime. I mean, it's now I wanted to just touch on you've sung the national anthem on opening day for what, 12 years now?
This year was my 11th consecutive year. Yeah.
Okay. Thought for some reason it was 12, but I wanted to just dive in and just ask you, you got one of the most recognizable voices out there. When did you realize your voice was actually your superpower?
Well, I appreciate that. I always had, obviously being the son of my father, I always had a big speaking voice, but right. I never really knew when I was young that I could sing. And then I went to a pretty small middle school, private school in Media, Pennsylvania, where it was so small, they put on a musical, but they forced all the kids to do the musical. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to put it on, right? So I'm like, well, they're going to force me to be in the musical. I might as well try. And I went and got singing lessons. It turns out that the coach, the vocal coach that I ended up using was an opera singer. And the rest was history. I kind of picked it up very quickly, and I've loved singing classically and, more jazz and American standards. I've loved that ever since.
Right. Did you always see yourself as a broadcaster or in music?
Yeah, I always saw myself going in that direction. And so I went to University of Miami, double majored in vocal performance and originally vocal performance and broadcast journalism. But then I very quickly found professional poker, and right. I did very, very well with that. Early on in my freshman year, I had a very fast kind of rise to the top of the highest stakes games online. And the double major at that point became a lot for me, specifically the languages. When you study vocal performance, you got to study French, German, Italian, and I'm dyslexic. So that wasn't easy for me. So I stopped the vocal performance and instead double major in theater arts. So I ended up double majoring in broadcast journalism and theater arts. And but my full-time major was in poker. That's where I was spending most of my time. And I'm very fortunate to have found poker when I did and to have the success that I had.
Like you actually got a video here, I believe you sent me that, matter of fact, I believe it was around Good Friday, you said 15 years ago. that I want to show real quick.
Yeah.
For you and the audience.
Started playing poker for a living. It was about 15 years ago. This is before Black Friday. There was this heads-up player named Gassett. He was a strong regular. He would win consistently. But one month, he decided to play OMG Clay Aiken, Phil Galfond, heads up. And he lost some more. And nobody ever really heard or saw Gassett after that session. Now, I don't know if Gassett still plays for a living, but the moral of the story is that the most important quality to sustain your profession as a professional poker player is to game select. You've got to check your ego at the door. I mean, you could be the second best poker player in the world, but if you're playing the best, you're going to be a loser in that game. So make sure you have good game selection in all the games that you play.
What was it that made you get into poker? Just love of the card game? Just...
Yeah. So what it was is in high school, I played some home games with friends, and I was just automatically one of the stronger players in the group. You know, I was always very good at math, and I understand game theory very well. And my other friend in the game, his name's Ben. He was the biggest loser in the game. He played very active. He played too many hands, very aggressive. And what happened is my senior year of high school, our senior year of high school, I got a call from Ben, and he said, you know, I'm dropping out of school and I'm going to play poker for a living. I'm like, Ben, you can't even beat our $20 home game. What are you talking about? You're playing for a living. He's like, watch me. I'm like, okay, good luck. So he went and got a job at Staples. He'd lose his paycheck every week. But sure enough, by the time I was a freshman in college, I got a call from Ben. I'm like, hey, how's poker been going? He's like, oh, pretty good. You know, I've been making, I've had a couple of back-to-back 5-figure months. And I'm like, wow, that is real money. And I'm like, hey, can you show me kind of what you're doing and show me the ropes? And he did. And, you know, back then early on, I basically only ever played one-on-one heads up. Poker, and I used a site back then. There was a site called Poker Table Ratings where you could look up any player on any website, see their complete history, and I would basically only play guys who were big losing gamblers whose graph was straight down. Wow. And that gets back to kind of the video you just showed is how important game selection is, right? So that's kind of how I started my career. And back then, you could make a living doing that, even though I wasn't the best poker player in the world. I was selective, and I checked my ego at the door, and I played guys who were worse than me. Today, it's way harder. I mean, if I were, 18 years old again, I would not be going into professional poker because today, the computers have gotten to the point where if you study hard enough, poker is pretty close to being solved. And that trickles down even to the amateurs. The amateurs are watching content about poker, and so they've gotten better too. People are making fewer mistakes. I mean, I've gotten to a point in my poker career where today I now play basically every single form of poker you can name, over 20 different variations of poker. I don't only play heads up anymore. I play 6-handed, I play 9-handed, I play both cash games and tournaments. So basically, I've needed to become a jack of all trades in poker just to kind of try to make the same kind of money that I was making at 18 years old, because it's gotten so much more competitive.
What is the psyche just getting ready to go into a big tournament? I mean, are you laid back? Are you nervous? Are you?
I think the most important thing is to just kind of be make sure that you have the fundamentals down ahead of time, right? It's really doing your homework before you get there. And then what I'll see a lot of times is there will be online players who have been in this situation thousands of times and they know what to do. But all of a sudden, when they get in a big situation in a live tournament at the World Series of Poker, their opponent's looking them in the eye. They just don't pull the trigger on the bluff because, maybe he'll pick up on something. Maybe he knows I'm bluffing. I would say that that's one of the biggest mistakes I see talented players make is once they get into the big situation, they don't necessarily, have the kahunas to pull the trigger because they're worried about these external factors, which really, live reads and live tells are a thing, but they don't play as big of a role in the game as the mathematics, as the game theory. And so what I would say is, if you ever find yourself competing at the World Series of Poker and you feel nervous, it's okay to have that feeling. It's even okay if your hands are shaking a little bit, because us as professionals, unless I've played with you a lot, I don't know when your hand's shaking, if that means you have a big hand or if that means you're bluffing. Right. So what I would say, if you're there and your game is to bluff in this spot, or your game is to go for a thin value bet in this spot, then go ahead with what you would normally do. Don't be intimidated by the fact that you might be having a strong heartbeat or feeling a certain way, and take a more passive action.
Would you say is it easy to call somebody's bluff sometimes, or is it just like you said, you don't know if somebody's hands are shaking? Or
so the easiest is when a player just is mathematically deviating so far away from what is optimal that it's easy to call his bluff. For example, you're playing a 9-handed table and the guy's just playing every single hand. I think he's betting the flop, betting the turn, betting the river. This is the easiest thing, because you can just break down from a math perspective. Okay, well, this guy's just not going to have it most of the time, right? But then if you're talking about more normal players who are playing more normal ranges, yes, you can sometimes pick up on some live reads. One of my favorite, if somebody raises, and sometimes they'll have their hands on the table, they're kind of covering their stack, and I ask, hey, can I see your chips? Players will tend to kind of move their chips forward towards the pot in the event that they are actually weaker, in the event that they're folding. And it's like a subtle way of them trying to say, oh, I'm ready to go all in, when in fact they're not. It's a classic weak is strong and strong is weak live read. And that's just one of very many live tells that I use. But again, these are mostly used on amateurs, inexperienced players. When you play against some of the top professionals in the world who are a little more buttoned up, who are used to the situation, you can pick up on stuff like that, but it's way harder.
I was going to say, have you competed in tournaments around the world, or just here in the United States itself?
I've competed in tournaments around the world. I play the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas every single year since I've been 31 years old. And then I've traveled to European Poker Tour tournaments. But most of my playing has been in the United States, both live and online. However, in 2018 in Montenegro, I won the largest pot in the history of televised poker, or was at the time. So I set a new record in 2018 for winning the largest pot, and that was a crazy game. I mean, that lineup was very difficult. It was guys that, even if you're a casual poker fan, you've probably heard of: Patrick Antonius, Phil Ivey, Daniel Jungleman Cates, Mikita Batsiakowski, Tom Dwan. It was just a table full of some of the top players in the world. So that was kind of a career-defining moment to go out in Montenegro and win that pot.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Now, was that like televised on, let's say, ESPN? I know ESPN's always had poker tournaments on, and Texas Hold'em and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was featured. The World Series of Poker moved to CBS Sports, and I was featured on there in their coverage of the 2015 World Series of Poker main event. I made it pretty deep in that tournament. I ended up finishing in 115th place. The Montenegro pot wasn't on a major television network. It was just a poker live stream, which is where most poker content these days is consumed.
Would you say Monte Carlo is kind of like a big casino, like for cards or gambling?
Not for poker. So the Monte Carlo Casino doesn't offer poker. It's one of the most beautiful casinos I've ever been in. It's almost more like a museum than a casino to me. In the Monte Carlo Casino, it's the only casino I've been in that charges a cover, first of all. And you go inside and the walls are just beautiful, hand painted. I mean, everything is just the top of the top in the Monte Carlo Casino. But if you're in Monaco and you want to play poker, nearby I played some poker at, I believe it's called the Sun Casino. It's in the Fairmont Hotel. I'm not sure if they're still running a poker game, but that's one of the first places I traveled internationally to play when I wasn't old enough to play live in the United States. So I traveled to Monaco at age 18
Nice.
to go play that game at the Sun Casino. And, I showed up, and my plan was to just play for as long as I can, make as much money as I can. I get there the first time I play. I started at 10 or 11 p.m. because I was jet lagged. And then at 2 a.m., they said, okay, that's it. That's the last hand. And I said, what? They said, yeah, we're done for the night. And I've never heard of such a thing. We don't do that at too many places that I know of in the United States. So I'm like, oh, okay, they go on like more of a regular schedule. But back then, that game was very, very soft. There were basically no professionals in the game. And today, I'm sure it's totally different.
Right. Actually wanted to get back on your singing career. One of the videos I actually did pull up, I don't know when this was. I didn't realize you did an album, I guess, songs that your dad liked. Well, I don't even know how many pieces you had on it, but I'd like to play this video you could for the audience.
Luck be a lady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight. Luck if you've ever been a lady to begin with. Luck be a lady tonight.
You got me in a Sinatra mode there.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one. It is an 18-track album of songs that all have a special meaning to my dad. It's called the High Hopes album. Here it is right here. You can
All right, I remember that.
Yeah, you can buy it on my website, kingcallis.com, or you can get it on Amazon. You can also stream it wherever you stream your music, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music. And the great thing about this album, first of all, it's a tribute to my dad, but also the city of Philadelphia. And every single song on the album ties into my dad, because it was really kind of watching my dad growing up. He'd be at a lounge or a piano bar, and he'd get up and he'd sing some Sinatra that really got me interested in that type of music. So it's more American standards, less classical, but still every single song has a special meaning. For example, Bridge Over Troubled Water is one of the highlight pieces on the album, and that was the song that my dad asked to be played when he reached his final resting place. And in fact, it was played at Citizens Bank Park when they honored my father and mourned him after his passing. In addition, you got the Eagles fight song on there. The first song on the album is "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," where there's actually a clip of Pops on there as well. So it's a great album. I put a lot of work into it. So check it out.
I mean, 18 piece bands. I mean, that's how long did it take you to record the album?
Over a year. I worked on it for about a year and a half. And as you mentioned, the band members, most modern music today, a lot of the instrumental part of the music is computer generated. Right. And so, it's kind of tough to tell, but you can tell the difference, if you have a refined ear, between the real thing and something that's computer generated. And I also wanted to support local artists in the tri-state area. So, nice. I ended up using over 60 musicians in the making of this album. For some pieces like Bridge Over Troubled Water and This Is the Moment from Jekyll and Hyde, I basically had a small chamber orchestra in the studio kind of recording at the same time. As you saw in that clip with Luck Be a Lady, there was a decent number of people there. Might 15 or 20 musicians there as well. So this was a passion project. It was something I knew I wanted to do for a very long time. And I ended up doing it when I thought I had the resources and the time to really do it justice. And I'm so happy with how everything came together.
Now, is that the first? Is that the only album you recorded, or did you have any? Do you have another album out?
No, that's it. High Hopes
That's
is
it?
that is
Okay.
that is my album, and a lot of work and passion went into that. So
Right.
we'll see. I'll have to think hard before I want to get into that again, because again, it took a year and a half, and it was very expensive to make. And
Right.
this specifically was one thing I wanted to do, just kind of for Dad and his
Right.
legacy and his memory, and also to honor the city of Philadelphia.
Well, I don't, I'd like to hear it myself, just everything, you put in 18 tracks and just, I'm sure you did it with a fine tooth comb. And,
Absolutely.
it's, just hearing that song, like, I was just researching, before knowing you were coming on, and saw that, and I was like, wow, let me pull this out,
Yeah.
like I said, little Frank Sinatra, and
when you order the album, you'll get a little booklet that'll explain exactly how each piece is
Right.
related to my dad. Is why it's on the album. It's great. It's just I'm very happy with how the product came together.
I remember when, like I said, me being a Phillies game day employee for 17 years, I recall the album coming out, and I believe they were selling it at the souvenir and the vendor. I believe gentlemen that go around with the publications, they were selling it, with the yearbooks or the media guide and whatnot.
Yeah,
but it was.
Yeah, when the album came out, the Phillies were selling it there. It didn't end up being a bestseller. Not too many people are buying physical CDs these days. But
Right.
the great thing about this album, well, first of all, if you're consuming it for the music, you can do that on Apple, Spotify, Apple Music, Spotify, or YouTube. But this album has a lot more to it than just a regular music album. Like I say, if you get the physical copy, you also have that booklet that describes
Right.
how each song is related to my dad. The artwork is just gorgeous on here. You're supporting local musicians, and it's kind of a collector's piece, right? This is people buy the album not just for the music, but because the album is a tribute to my dad and a tribute to Philadelphia.
Is there any recording artists that you have come across to meet in your singing career at all?
Oh, I've met a number. I spent I spent some time with Taylor Swift.
Nice.
Yeah, and she was the nicest person in the world. We sang at the same NLCS game. We were playing the Cardinals. I believe it was 2007, perhaps 2008, but I think 2007 NLCS.
I know. Let me think.
I sang.
I know we beat the Dodgers in both 08 and 09. I recall we lost. Did we play the year they won the division when the Mets choked on the last day? I want to say they played. Was it Colorado?
So we were playing the Cardinals.
I remember they lost in the playoffs to the Cardinals when Ryan Howard tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
In that game, and I think that was either 2010 or 2011. But I know it wasn't the NLCS. I think that was the division.
No, it's before that. It must have been 2000, maybe 2006, because I was 18 years old. So, and
Okay.
I'm now 36. So,
okay, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other recording artists that you have come across to meet besides Taylor Swift?
Yeah. So Questlove is obviously a Philly guy. I met him at a Philly game, and he's a drummer on the Tonight Show, and a very talented drummer, and I think he raps a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there have been a few.
I was going to say, Tug McGraw, God, rest his soul, as well as your dad. Tim McGraw being one of the better country music artists today. Have you ever interacted with Tim McGraw at all?
You know what? I've actually never had the honor of meeting Tim. I've heard great things about him, and obviously Tugger was great. He was one of a kind, but no, I haven't.
Right. I remember when Citizens Bank Park opened up, he wrote that song, "Live Life Like You Were Dying," in memory of Tug McGraw. Just
right.
Everything he, it was like a rocky relationship with Tug, Tim and Tug, but I know they got, close together, as Tug got older, Tim's career was growing as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought for a second. Next question is, what was it like growing up around the game and then now carving your own lane?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I go to the vet with Dad, and at first, I'd have my dad take me to the game and I'd come home with him. But we quickly learned that because, it wasn't an easy trip to get into the city from media.
Right.
But we quickly learned that it's okay. It was okay for me to go to the game with my dad when I was a kid. He would have to get there a few hours early, but that's fine. I could do homework. But coming home, I wasn't getting to sleep until very late. And the reason why is because after the game, he didn't have any broadcasting responsibilities, but when he'd leave, go to his car, there would always be an army of fans, asking for an autograph, asking for him to do the voicemail. He would do every single last autograph every single night before coming home. And so I quickly learned, like, man, if I go to the game with my dad, I'm not getting home until 12:30 or 1 a.m. And so I'd have to sometimes get my mom to come pick me up from the games. But it was just so special the way that the city embraced my dad. And I learned that from an early age. And to this day, it continues to be so special.
Oh, I would say I had the honor to meet your dad. He came to I went to Catholic school, and he came to my grade school in third grade because one of the teachers there at the time was a Phillies ball girl. And, your dad came in the auditorium and he talked for probably a good hour, and he, he signed autographs, and, I had the privilege to meet him. I still have that autograph of your dad's somewhere. And I would say it was right after the 1980 World Series. I want to say 81 or 82, because he had the World Series, Phillies World Series ring on. And I did get a look at it, and your dad just very down earth, very cordial person. And I mean, like you said, you grew up around the game, and I mean, it had to be, I guess pretty exciting for you, meeting some of the players, the 93 World Series. And just, can you touch on like your experiences of meeting, different players? And
oh yeah. So when I'd go to the ballpark, I'd always bring my baseball, because I was a big fan growing up, and I'd ask my dad, hey, could I get these signatures or meet the different players? And then also there would be charity events that the Phillies would do, where my father would be invited. And whenever they did a charity event for a bowling or pool, I'm a strong bowler and a strong pool player. My father would always bring me and get me to substitute in for him. So I remember I was teamed up in the pool tournament with Larry Bird, And we went.
Oh, wow.
I think we got second place in the pool tournament, which was great. He's a great guy. And also, I was close to Randy Wolf growing up. I would shoot pool. Yeah, I shot pool in a separate tournament with him. And Randy actually I ran into him last World Series of Poker. We were actually somehow in a $3,000 buy-in no limit hold'em event. We were seated right next to each other, and so Randy enjoys playing a little poker as well. And of course, my father was close friends with Ricky Bowe, who broadcasts for Comcast these days, and Ricky's become a friend of mine. So, yeah,
nice.
definitely great relationships with a lot of players. We're very fortunate to have had amazing players who are also amazing people and have stayed with the organization, who continue to donate their time for charitable causes. For example, like I'm part of the Darren Dalton Foundation that is working towards helping people with brain cancer. And there are just a number of guys that I kind of grew up with and getting their autographs. Morandini is always donating his time, and Larry Boa, I see him there all the time. Milt Thompson. So a lot of great players, but also great people.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I was, before we came on air, I told you I was going to be the third annual Coaches for Cancer next Saturday at FDR Park at the Phillies Urban Field. Coach Frankfurt Pioneers baseball coach in the public league, Juan Nanum, who had breast cancer, and God bless it, he did beat it. I know he's affiliated with the Phillies. If you don't mind me just pulling this up, that I was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just wanted to put it out because it's like coming fast, and if anybody would like to donate to the QR code, it's kicks off next week at 9:45 at the Philadelphia Phillies Youth Urban Academy. It's 12 local high school teams that'll be competing. All the proceeds go to Fox Chase Cancer Center. The Johnson, Kendall and Johnson, and I believe it goes to the American Cancer Society. If anybody would like to, donate whatever you can just for the cause.
That's great.
It's a great cause. Like I said, a lot of the players of all the teams will be playing for, they'll be holding up placards for, somebody who may have cancer, or somebody in their family or friend that passed away of cancer. But starts 9:45 next Saturday at FDR Park. So if anybody would like to come out, you're more than welcome. I'll be there with my show, because I had Juan Nanum on, great guy, and just to touch on that. Thank you for let me put that out real quick.
Absolutely.
Give me one. Got to drink a lot of water on these broadcasts.
Oh yeah.
Talking. I was going to say, I saw a video, and I should have pulled this up, where I believe it was Vet Stadium. I don't know how old you were, but I believe you were in the booth with your dad, and you were calling a couple on the broadcast, and I believe Albert Pujols was your I guess the first player you announced on TV or the radio. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah,
I wish I had the video, but
on Father's Day, coming up to Father's Day, I believe I was maybe 12 years old at the time. My father asked me. He said, "Hey, the Phillies are thinking about doing a segment, with my sons in the booth, since Todd will be in town. Do you want to come in the booth with us?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course." I was a big baseball fan. And we were discussing it, well, how are we going to set up this booth? Who's going to be on what? And they're like, well, why don't you let Kane do play-by-play? Like, that's a great idea to have a 12-year-old do play-by-play. So they put me on play-by-play, and we're playing the Cardinals. And Albert Pujols, this is rookie year. And, I haven't heard of him before, and I certainly hadn't taken Spanish at this point in my life. So I said, and now coming up to the plate is Albert Pujols. And there's actually I did when I made my album, I did a little mini documentary. It's called High Hopes Honoring a Legend. You can find it on YouTube, and in there is the Albert Pujols story. So yeah, it was a fun, and that clip is on there. It's a funny moment.
I mean, were you planning to do that, or they just kind of just threw you into the fire as far as announcing?
I learned that I would be on air a couple nights before, and I learned that I would be doing play-by-play 5 minutes before we got on air. So
okay,
yeah.
Kane, what's one behind the scenes moment fans would never expect from a broadcast booth?
One behind the scenes moment fans would never expect from my dad, from a broadcaster.
Just like you, like when you were in there, just your dad's experiences over the years.
Yeah. What I'll say is, I've been in newsrooms. I've been in a lot of things where, the public eye, where things are being recorded, especially where there are a lot of viewers and watchers and listeners, and these things were pretty packed together. The Phillies broadcast booth, anyway, very relaxed, very chill. I mean, it was, and that's what made it great, because my dad and Whitey would say whatever the hell he wanted, and my dad would roll with it, right? And I remember when I was in the booth, there was always a guy whose job it was to kind of give some sort of insight or some sort of stat that just happened related to a player. But most of it, 99% of it, is just kind of shooting the breeze with your broadcast partner. And I think that's what makes a great broadcast, rather than it being too scripted or too formulaic. I think it's what made my dad and Whitey great, because one of my dad's strengths as a broadcaster is he didn't know how to let the game breathe, and it worked out perfect with Whitey's dry wit and sense of humor to have that pairing. And when you let the game breathe like that, when something really exciting happens, those high notes stand out even more.
I remember 1980. I know it was your dad, Richie Ashburn, Andy Musser. I know Tim McCarver was in on, and Chris Wheeler. They came out with a 33 vinyl record of, like, I forget what it was called, but it was like a narration I think your dad did with, like, all the Phillies calls on the radio and TV that year, because I wish I still had it, because that it was 1980 World Champions. Matter of fact, I forgot all about it till it just came to me, but it was just like all the calls of your dad, Richie Ashburn, Andy Musser, Tim McCarver, Chris Wheeler, and just your dad, I believe back in like 2008, your dad and those guys weren't able to do the World Series, I guess, because of, I think, like, the same reason they couldn't broadcast, I believe, because of the national broadcast. Like, your dad called the 2008 with Brad Lidge. It was like the same thing back then. And I know your dad did a re-narration of Tug McGraw, striking out Willie Wilson. But if I could think of the album or find it, I will let you know, because it was I don't know if you know anything about it, but they did sell it. And hopefully I can get my hands on this thing again. It was a classic.
Oh, wow.
And I can't, it's probably on eBay for all I know. I mean, or
Could be, yeah.
I mean, it was just, it was, you know, it was just amazing. Like,
Start limiting our opponents to fewer than 5+ runs a game.
right.
But you know, honestly, 2008 was just so exciting for me because I wasn't old enough for the previous World Series to really appreciate it, or even born for some of them. But the 2008 moments was just so huge. And but here's the thing: I wouldn't switch out for my dad because that's what that was his moments, you know, and that's what he'd been kind of living for and waiting for so long. So if anything, I'd take the seat next to him and just be along for the ride. And another great one was honestly last year's World Series was riveting television. I mean, to call the game where the ground rule double happens, right, where the ball is under and there were just so many moments in last year's World Series where the odds of one of the two teams winning just flipped and shifted the other way. It was just kind of breathtaking television, in my opinion. And I wish we would have been there. We were this close to beating the Dodgers. But nonetheless, it was still a great World Series. And the third, I'll even give you a third. It was one of the most riveting World Series I ever watched was when the Giants won and Madison Bumgarner somehow pitched like 40% of the innings in the whole series. I mean, it was insane, the performance that he put on. I'd never before that seen somebody pitch with so few days rest, pitch so well, with such a high pitch count in so many games. It was really amazing. And it was kind of the first time, I think, that franchises began to learn, hey, we could actually use our ace when it comes to this big moment. We could actually rely on our ace a little bit more than we thought we could. We don't need to strictly adhere to this, set amount of rest.
Oh, when you talk about last year's World Series, I forget the Japanese pitcher's only been in the league a couple of years. I know the Phillies offered him more money to come here, but he chose to go, play with Ohtani, and he, I think he pitched on like 2 days rest. I can't think of his name, but talk about a horse. That's, you don't see that today. Like that's a throwback. I mean, just to appreciate a talent like that is just, unheard of today. I mean, you go back to the old days where some pitchers, old school would go like, 2 days. I mean, 3 days. But actually wanted to pull up a recording of you singing the national anthem at CBP for one of the. I know it wasn't this year's opener, but. I don't know how you hit that high note, but God bless you. I wish
so
I could.
That was from this year. That was this year's anthem.
Oh, it was? All right.
Yeah. I love doing it.
I mean, like you said, 11 years of doing it. And I mean, what's it?
Home opener. And when we make the playoffs, normally if we make it to the NLCS, I'll come back and do a playoff game as well. And I had the honor of singing God Bless America at the World Series when we played my brother's team, the Astros.
Right. As your dad, I'm sorry, your brother Todd is still announcing with the Houston Astros.
Oh yeah, he's out there in Houston, still doing the play-by-play. I think this is the first year maybe since he's been there, that they weren't favored to win their division. Still have a good squad. They're still expected, I think, to make the playoffs. But yeah, this was the first year where Vegas didn't have them as the favorite to win the division.
I remember when Prism was around, your brother was doing broadcasting for Prism with the Phillies. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I believe your dad started with the Houston Colt 45s before he came to the Phillies.
He started his professional Major League Baseball career with the Houston Astros.
Right.
And his home run call at the time was not out of here. That didn't come until later, until I think a few years after he started with Philadelphia. His home run call in Houston was, "That ball is in astro orbit."
Nice.
Didn't stick on. That one didn't stick on as well as out of here. So it's a little more pithy.
Right.
So before Houston, my dad was with the Hawaii Islanders, the college team. And what a lot of people don't know about this, the Hawaii Islanders have had a hell of a broadcast squad, because my dad was broadcasting for them. And I believe after my dad left, Al Michaels broadcast for the Hawaii Islanders. So, yeah. So if you want to have a career in the broadcast business, you might want to consider starting with the Hawaii Islanders.
I remember, speaking of Hawaii, a light bulb went off, because I want to go back to when I was in elementary school when your dad was there, and this is 40 plus years. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember your dad talking something about Hawaii. Don't ask me how. And your dad said it's not pronounced Hawaii, it was pronounced Hawaii. Now, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong. But don't ask me. I remember him talking about something about that.
It could be, most people pronounce it as 2 syllables when it's 3.
Maybe that was it, but
the proper way to pronounce it is Hawaii. Maybe that's
maybe.
Yeah.
Some reason I can remember weird stuff from my childhood, and just I don't know. Actually, I did want to talk to you about, the recent thing in the media about the Phillies, changing the restaurant of your dad's, Harry the Keys, I believe it was the Beverage Ghost. Can you give your opinion on this?
Yeah. So the Phillies reached out to me and let me know before opening day that they were moving on from Harry the K's because of a corporate sponsorship. And they got the sponsorship from Ghost. And honestly, to me, Harry the K's kind of left more like 6 years ago or so. There used to be a restaurant under the bar that has been Harry the K's. That was Harry the K's. It had my dad's likeness and pictures on the wall. On the menu, it had pictures of my dad and broadcasting with Whitey. It had quotes from my dad and Whitey. In my opinion, that restaurant really embodied my father more than the bar ever did. The bar never really had quotes from my dad or that much of his likeness. And so for me, it kind of moved on from Harry the K a number of years ago. It wasn't this year, but it's funny when they changed that restaurant, the fans didn't seem to care at all. I was the only one who was kind of bummed, because I used to eat there after every anthem, every opening day. I'd go and get a cheesesteak or a Schmitter at the restaurant, and then they got rid of that. So for me, it hasn't been the same since then. So I listen. I understand that it wasn't going to last forever, and the Phillies. They're a business, and they're trying to make money, and I think that Middleton gave an interview where he made a good point. The kind of money they're getting from this sponsorship could allow them to purchase a new player to be competitive. And ultimately, that's what the fans want. They want to win. And the Phillies are still continuing to honor my father and everybody who is special, who has a special place in the heart of the fans and the Phillies organization in so many ways. I mean, the statue, of course, which was donated by the fans, the Harry Callis broadcast booth, they playing him singing High Hopes after every home win, which, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of that this season. To me, those are the things that are important.
Oh, including myself. I mean, to me, it was, to me, I have a coworker. His name's Rob today, said to me he said to me, your dad was bigger than any Phillies player, just like the iconic broadcaster that he was. It's like, players come and go. You're always going to have Schmidt, Carlton, the guys from 08, but, your dad, I'll say this, Philadelphia, the Delaware Valley, like, as far as sports history, we've really have had some iconic broadcasters. Your dad, Merrill Reese with the Eagles for 50 years, Gene Hart with the Flyers. Before those guys, like before me, Richie Ashburn, of course, Byron Som, who I don't remember. Bill Campbell was another Philly icon. I remember him not as a broadcaster, but he used to be on. Well, it used to be 12. Well, it's 12:10, but he used to be 12:10 WCAU at the time, and I know Bill Campbell did a lot of pregame Philly stuff, and but as a Philly sports fan growing up, you just remember, it's just fortunate that we've had the icons of who we've had, like I said, and it's a privilege.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is. Like just, like 1980, Phillies won a series, and Phillies, Flyers, and Sixers all ended up going to the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Finals, and the NBA Finals. But the Phillies were the only team to bring it home. And, it was just, being 8 years old, that was like, this is great. Can this happen every year? And actually, there was one other story I wanted to touch on, because when you said something about Richie Ashburn basically speaking his mind, there was a game. Well, back then the Phillies were on Channel 17, for those who younger generations don't know this, but it was the end of '93. And I think your dad must have been on the radio at the time. The Phillies were just barely a couple games up on the Montreal Expos, which happen to be the Washington Nationals right now. And I think there were maybe 2 games up, and it was the end of the '93 season. And Mitch Williams ended up blowing a game. And I want to say Whitey was on with Chris Wheeler. And I recall this. It was late at night. I'll make a long story short. I forget what Richie said, but I guess he didn't realize they were still on the broadcast. And Mitch blew the game, and he was like, "Let's get the blank out of here." And you heard him like throw down the headset, no lie. And all I remember is reading the Daily News up the next day, and it said, some Phillies fans were calling up Channel 17 because of like what Whitey said. Because I heard it. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And it was like, just to recall, like you said, Whitey. Well, plus, he would order pizzas from Celebreeze like all the time. And I heard, they would always say like, you're not supposed to be doing that, but
For
he
sure.
would do it. He would do it anyway, which is, just classic stuff. And
the Phillies had a stern sitting down with him after that. They said, "Listen,
really,
they said, listen, Richie, as you know, Celebreeze is not our sponsor, and we can only give shout outs to our sponsor. And look, I understand that it's all fun and games, but we really have to ask you to stop. Here's your contract language. This can't continue." And so that game, Whitey, instead of giving them a shout out as a corporate sponsor, what he normally did, they do birthday wishes every day. And at the end, my dad was getting ready to get back to the game, and Whitey said, "Wait, hold on, Harry, there's one more birthday wish." My dad said, "Really?" And Whitey said, Yeah. To the Celebreeze boys, plain and pepperoni. And you just threw it in that way. So,
okay, I just had a couple more questions. I know a lot of people don't know how serious you are about music. What does performing do for you that broadcasting may not?
well, what I love about performing is just the ability to have that creative outlet, that really emotional outlet. I mean, I'd say it's very different from poker or from what I spend most of my time doing now, which is investing. In that, I'm trying to move an audience. I'm trying to really, through my emotions, get it, touch other people. And, one of my favorite things about doing the anthem every opening day is one, it reminds people of the memories they had about my dad, right? But two is I sing a pretty traditional version of our national anthem in a pretty classical style, and I've heard from a lot of our vets that they really that it really moves them. It really brings out the patriotism in the people at the game. So there's nothing more that I love than that. I'm not moving too many people at the professional poker table, but to be able to do that through my singing, it's just a different outlet, and it's so special.
Now, 3 professions: broadcasting, poker playing, singing. Which of the 3 drives your passion?
Well, these days I spend most of my time investing. I'm a professional investor. These days, I still play poker for supplemental income, but it's no longer my full-time thing. I have the most fun performing, for sure. I love performing. It's very difficult to make a living as a performer, and my original plan was to go into opera singing. Mm-hmm. And I'm very glad that, as much as I love opera and performing, I'm very glad that I found poker and did that instead, because it's just a different lifestyle, and I managed to become very successful in poker very quickly, and now to be able to just manage my own assets and invest from the money I'd earned from poker. It's a great life, and it really opens up the time and the space for me to make serious investments in the type of things that I love doing and that are passions of mine, such as creating this album, such as donating to causes, as we already talked about, the Darren Dalton Foundation. But I'm also passionate about donating to AI safety as AI models continue to get stronger and stronger. I think we need to pay a lot more attention to what happens when these models become smarter than we are. And especially when you have the people running the AI companies saying that, well, maybe there's a 20% chance that we all die when we create AI that's more powerful than us. These are the people running the companies, and that's what they're saying publicly. What do they say privately? Right. So that's something that I'm worried about and donating to. And there's actually a great new documentary that's come out about AI and existential risk. It's called the AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptist. or something like that. Something like that title. It's just about to come out to Apple TV and I think to Amazon Prime. And I would encourage everybody to watch that. And then also, animal rights is a passion of mine too. I think that the conditions we have on factory farms are abhorrent, and I give kind of my time and my effort to trying to improve those conditions as well. So I've been very fortunate in that I'm able to kind of, my job has been poker for many years, now investing, and then with my time away from that, I'm able to perform, I'm able to broadcast, and I'm able to pursue these charitable outlets.
What's been the toughest moment in your journey so far that has shaped who you are today?
Oh, it's my dad's passing. I mean, I was 20 years old at the time at University of Miami, and it was unexpected. My dad he didn't have the best, he didn't have the best vitals. He didn't have the best heart, and his cardiologist told him, there are concerning signs here, but nobody's said that, he was likely to have a heart attack, or if he did, it would be fatal. So, it kind of took all of us by surprise. And so I'd say that was the hardest thing I've dealt with in my entire life was losing dad at age 20 and, figuring out where to go from there, figuring out where to go with kind of my role model and my rock no longer around.
Right. Just had a couple quick questions, some fun quick hitters. Philly cheesesteaks or pizza?
Cheesesteaks, and the best one is Curly's.
Where's that at? I've heard of it.
Yeah, Curly's comfort food. It's in like the Levittown area. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Another great one is Verona Pizza in Ambler.
I've heard of it. I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, normally when I'm in town, I stay closer there, so I go there all the time. So Curly's and Verona Pizza, can't go wrong either way.
Dream artist to perform with?
Ooh, dream artist to perform with. So, I'm such an old soul. All my favorite artists, a lot of them have passed, Frank Sinatra, the Dean Martin. But, these days, Michael Bublé is carrying on that kind of tradition and singing in that style. And so it would be amazing to one day get a chance to perform with Bublé.
Nice. One word to describe Philly.
Resilience.
Yeah. Favorite stadium atmosphere?
Favorite stadium atmosphere? I mean, listen, I got to go with Citizens Bank Park. I've been to some other ballparks that are really cool around the country, but for me, with the nostalgia and with obviously going there to sing every time, there's just something real special about Citizens Bank Park. It's also just a beautiful, beautiful park. I mean, It's funny how we kind of went from just kind of the Veteran Stadium, which was just kind of had no real character, right? It was just kind of like, this is a place where events happen, to like a real ballpark with that.
I get it. I mean, the Vet, to me, I was fortunate. The Vet was, has this history of the 700 level with the Eagles, and just cookie cutter stadium at that time, Three Rivers in Cincinnati, Riverfront in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. One last question: walk up song if you had to choose one.
Oh my! When I'm walking up to the plate, what would be my walk-up theme song? It's a good question. I think it's going to go a completely different direction. When I was growing up, there was an MMO, which is a massive online RPG game called EverQuest, and it was like so much fun. It was like the first online MMO, or maybe the second. And the theme music to EverQuest, I've always thought is just so so majestic. These days, they don't really make like big orchestral music anymore. They do for music, movie soundtracks. But outside of that, you don't really get the amazing like orchestral stuff you got from like the 1800s and 1900s. But I think you get that with movie soundtracks and with video games. And so the EverQuest theme song, that would be my walk up to.
Before I let you go, and I'm sure I've always actually have tried to imitate your dad doing a call. I don't know if it might have been maybe Mike Schmidt's 500th home run, but if you don't mind, if I can just
let me hear it.
I don't know what the count was that day, but I recall 1987 in Pittsburgh. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Swing a long drive. Number 500. There it is. Out of here. Home run. Michael Jack Schmidt.
Very good. I like it. I think the pitcher was Robinson.
Don Robinson.
Here's a set by Robinson. Yeah. The 3-1 pitch, or maybe 3-0. I can hear it. Swinging a long drive. There it is. Number 500. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. You nailed it. That's great.
I forgot what the count was, but I just. What's that?
Is that your favorite call of my dad's?
I think the 2008, when he was in the booth, and Bradledge.
Yeah.
And like I said, that album of 1980, if it's got to be out there somewhere, that's probably, I mean, back then, who the hell knows like how much it cost, but what's that got to be worth today, especially being vintage.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite is probably not one that most people have. A lot of people's is Chase Utley, You Are the Man, which was a great call. My favorite is Tomei's 400th home run. Oh. And the reason is because, first of all, Tomei was such a great guy, great person, right? But just the way it builds. Go after this, when we're off here, go on YouTube, look for that Tomei 400th home run and the broadcast and the way it built. Could it be? Could it be? It is out of here. It's just a great one.
I got a story. That night, this was my second stint with the Phillies. That was the first night I went back to work for the Phillies the second time when Tomei hit that. Because there was a rain delay for I don't think that game didn't get over till 2 or 3 in the morning. Because Ken Griffey Jr. was supposed to play that night because I think he was right near 400 or 500. And he chose to sit. He didn't play that night because he wanted to break it in Cincinnati.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember I didn't get home till about 3 in the morning. And I had to be at work at my full-time job the next day. I was like on fumes.
Oh man.
Yeah, but it was worth it. But
yeah.
I mean, it poured that night.
Yeah.
Well, Kane, I want to thank you so much for, coming on tonight. Actually, gentleman did make a comment. Ryan Haynes, 25-24. Fuji, much love, my brother. I thank you for the comment, Ryan. But, it was a fast hour, and I'm sure we could keep going on and on here, but I'd love to invite you back one day and, we'll chop it up again. But, Kane, thank you for, taking your time out of your schedule. I deeply appreciate it.
Of course, Fuji. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope to be back in the future. Go Phils.
Yes, sir. Go Phils. Well, there you have it. Mr. Kane Callis joining me tonight. I wanted to hope everybody has a good Holy Week. Happy Passover. reach out to anyone who has gone through something, because mental health awareness is very serious today, and we're all going through something. So on my behalf of Kane Callis, Mike Fuji, everybody have a good weekend, have a good Easter. Thank you, and everybody be safe this week. Have a good weekend.
Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell.